Hey guys, so I realized in doing these videos, I actually never talked to you about kind of how I got into the whole reselling business full time. It's a little bit of a long story, so bear with me, but I will tell you guys exactly kind of how I got into it and how it all went. Here's what happened. I was in the hotel business for about 13 years or so. I originally started out in Las Vegas. I was kind of a sales guy essentially, but I did contracting also. So if you were a company and you needed meeting space, you would talk to me and I would negotiate the contracts, the rates, all that sort of stuff. And then, so my next move was like, oh, okay, I've lived in Vegas, or no. My next move was like, I'd been to Vegas each year for my grandparents' anniversary. And so I had a buddy moving there. So I thought, maybe I'll head out there and give it a go. Kind of fell into this hotel sales thing. Did it for 13 years, right? So my entire life, I've worked since I was like 16 years old. Started a print shop, eventually moved to the hotel business. And so I was, 9 to 5, those sort of hours, like my entire life, essentially. Now, how did I get into reselling? Here's what happened. The girl that I was dating moved to California. So after doing a long distance for a little bit, I needed to get in the same state as she was, right? So I took a job with a parent company of a Vegas hotel, and they moved me out to San Diego. So I moved out to San Diego. So at least we're in the same state now, right? We're in the same state. About 5 months into the job, all of a sudden, the company starts to go into bankruptcy. So they decided that they wanted to do like a 1% layoff across the board, which is pretty big for that company. So just to kind of hold off the bankruptcy, that's what they decided to do. I was only about 5 months or so into the job at that point. So I got caught up in it. I'd never been laid off in my entire life. I'd worked since I was 16, like unbroken. All of a sudden, for the first time, here I am, I'm laid off, right? I've got a bachelor's in graphic and web design, so I pick up the computer stuff really easy. And at that point, I was thinking, you know what? Let's see if I can make it a go at that. I've never had an opportunity to really start that as a business or get into a company and actually use that. And so I thought, let's make it a go. Well, I started applying for jobs all over the place, and I couldn't get a job doing like a church newsletter, man. It was insane. Like, I can do some fairly good stuff in the graphics department, but I couldn't even get like an entry job. It was crazy. I couldn't even get a response. Like, forget about the interview, right? So here I am, I'm trying to figure this out, and I start looking up online. Oh, and if you hear that ringing, that's the ice cream man. He comes by like every day. One of the perks about having a warehouse. So here I am, I'm applying for jobs. I'm getting no sort of response. I can always go back to the hotel business. I read the book by Tim Ferriss, 4-Hour Work Week, which you guys have probably read. That's like the reseller's Bible, pretty much. Kind of gets the ideas going. So I kind of always have this idea in mind that, I can always go back at any point. So let's try something different for the first time in my life, right? So can't get these interviews. It's late night, right? It's late, it's like 3 or 4 in the morning. I'm like laying on the floor and I'm like, what? What do I do, right? So I'm like trying to figure out a way to make a living. I start seeing these terms online, reselling, and it's all kind of involving eBay a little bit. And so I'm looking at it. And so at the time, I didn't know that this was like kind of a no-no, but basically what it was doing is you could put stuff on eBay, and then when somebody ordered it, what you would do is you would actually order it yourself off of Amazon and have them ship it directly to the people on eBay. So drop shipping, essentially. I didn't know that wasn't a thing you were really supposed to do. So I did a couple of those, right? But here I am, I'm looking for like, other ways to make income. And all of a sudden I run into this term FBA, fulfilled by Amazon. I didn't know what that was. I looked it up, and then I'm like, holy crap. I'm like, you can actually just be a normal person and sell stuff on Amazon? Like, what? Or a small business? I thought everything came from Amazon. So that's what I thought, right? So started looking into that. So I'm like, okay, how do I figure out more about this? And I've always been, there's the ice cream man again. I've always been kind of in the mindset that if you can shorten your learning curve by buying a little training that's worth it, do it. Don't overspend, but if something shortens it up, go ahead and do it. So late night, I'm talking like 3 a.m., 4 a.m., I'm on the floor and I'm like, okay, what can I buy for training? So I started looking up this company called the Reselling family. I don't know if you guys have ever heard of it. I don't know how mainstream they are, but I ended up looking into them, sending them some questions. They answered at like 3 or 4 in the morning. Turns out it was virtual assistants. I didn't know that was a thing at the time, but they answered in the morning and they answered all my questions. And so I pulled the trigger on the training. I bought like $300 worth of training, right? And it's all video training. So I bought all that and I started watching the videos and stuff. And so then I started small. I started on my girlfriend's dining room table, right? And, using my own money, obviously. And so I'm starting on my dining room table, my girlfriend's dining room table. And that's how I started my business. I started selling some stuff, barely breaking even, losing some money, stuff like that. It got to the point where I was taking over the living room. So it was like a little bit too much, right? So she was like, you gotta keep this cleaned up. I would like make a mess and then have to pack it up every day and stuff like that. And so then came to the point where like I had to look into like a mother-in-law suite, like a couple miles away. And so I rented basically a room in a lady's house. I just used that to store crap. So I did that. And then that just became super inconvenient. So my girlfriend's like, you can use my garage. So I used her garage and I moved everything out there. But the problem with the garage was I started bringing in like pallets of stuff, and the neighbors were not happy. They were like watching me and stuff. And I knew it was just a matter of time, like before I was like wheeling pallets into the garage in a gated neighborhood, right? So I finally got to the point where I was feeling comfortable enough that I decided to rent a warehouse and make a go at it and stuff like that. I had some good background. And my girlfriend at the time was like, her standpoint was keep applying for jobs and keep trying to get something. But if this reselling stuff works out, then, make a go at that and stuff like that. And I didn't come from, a rich family or anything like that. I'm middle class, essentially. I didn't grow up poor. I definitely, like college, my computer, I bought myself and it could go to 5 websites. I had to write down the whole URL for the 5th website, write it down, then my computer would crash and then I had to wait for it to reboot and then I could type in the whole URL, start where I left off, and then go to 5 more websites. So that's how I studied in college. So if that tells you anything, it wasn't like, and I didn't come from a ton of money, right? So buying the training, the whole deal, was a total risk. Switching careers was a risk. But you know what? I'd done what I'd been doing for like 13 years. And I was basically just like, you know what? It's time. It's time to try something else. What's the worst that can happen? I can always go back. And so it's worked out, right? But it's had its ups and downs. And it's like, and you're always learning stuff and everything like that. It's not easy. And so I guess I'm just, I got forced into it essentially because I got laid off, but at the same time, I could have just easily gone back to the hotel business and I could have just done that and stuff like that. But I decided to take a step in a different direction and give that a shot and see if it worked. And so far it's panned out and it hasn't been easy and stuff like that. It's stressful and nobody understands it stuff like that. But that is how I ended up in the reselling business. And you learn a lot of things, to double down on your strengths and stuff like that. And your weaknesses are super apparent and you learn a lot. But you know what? I would not want to go back to the regular work world after all that. It's just, when you see it, now it's just like, how can I go back to that, And so as stressful as it is and that sort of thing, it's worth it. So I don't know. So hopefully that helps you guys out to understand kind of who I am and kind of how I got into all this and stuff like that. And I've been kind of walking around the warehouse while I've been talking because I didn't know if you guys were curious of just kind of like looking in the background, go, oh, what is that? Stuff. I wasn't sure, so I just thought, I just walk around, you guys don't ever get to see the full warehouse pretty much. But yeah, so anyways, good to know you guys. I'm taking a me day, man. I'm drinking a beer, I'm sitting on the couch, and I'm taking a me day. So that kind of got me thinking that I have not told you guys about me. So anyways, have a great weekend. Hopefully you guys enjoyed this at all. Let me know. All right, bye-bye.